Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Steelmint's Engage 5.0, a three-day webinar series which would cover a broad spectrum on topics ranging from iron ore, coal, ferroalloys, steel, and stainless steel. I am Muskan Gautam, analyst at Steelmint and your host for this session. I have the pleasure of extending a warm welcome to Mr. Pankaj Jha, GM Strategy and Marketing at Excoal Energy and Resources. Mr. Jha has industry experience of more than a decade across range of industries including ferrous and non-ferrous metals, building materials, power, mining, ports and commodity trading. Welcome, sir. I would
Thank you,
also
Muskan.
I would also welcome my co-moderator for the session and AGM Steelment, Mr. Abhi Banerjee. Welcome, sir. Now, to flag off proceedings, I request Mr. Jha to deliver his presentation on the topic Analyzing the Thermal Coal Landscape in India, Projections and Challenges in Meeting Demand and Supply by 2030. But before we start, a reminder to all the audience that we will be taking all the questions towards the end of the session. So please put down your queries in the chat box and do mention your name and your company's name when you put down your queries. Over to you, Mr. Jha.
Thank you, Muskan. Thank you, Avi, for this invitations, and I'm glad that I'm presenting here my views. Um, and first of all, thanks for all the audience which have joined here to understand a fair bit of a market idea what is going to be happen. Quickly, is I'm going to summarize with my presentations. Let me share my screen. Okay, is it visible to everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
Great. So before we step into the more details about, let me give you the gist of my presentation here. I'm just going to take a few bit on the economic indicators, how we are driving the things here, and then there are projections of the future coal demand, and then we can just a little bit visualize about the energy transitions and what are all the energy securities roles, government policies which has come across recently, and they're going forward and covering the outlook of coals and coking coal business till 2030. And it is a very quick views about our economic indications as we witness that we are actually is a growing economy, and today this mornings we hear from the horse's mouths, Mr. The RBI governor has given a very positive trajectories about the growth. Uh, although the other indices are actually is watching about 6.5 to 6.6% of economical growth, but we are confident that the 7% growth projections is nearby for us. The headline inflation has also becomes very low as of now, and we see the good amount of PMI activities are happening. I mean, having said that, the economy is really doing well. So the core inflation has really come down to 4.3, 4.6 level as of now, and the government is actually planning to make it under 4. So which is not a big target as of now, but if we see the growth momentums, we can achieve those success. So, I mean, given all the indices, we can witness that India is actually in a pace of a rising star as of now. And with this, we can see that a lot of other potentials, a lot of other indices is also growing together. And therefore, this outlook is more relevant to see that if we are growing, what our other sector is also equivalent growing up. So I'll move on to quickly on the power sectors. What are the projections for future coal? Uh, it's a quick recap about how the power industries. Sorry for this. How are we actually as of now currently in the power sector? And this is a very recent data. We can witness that we are actually the third largest electricity market globally. Ample amount of capacities has been added, and there are going forward. We can see a lot of capacity is also going to be added. And there is a consistent growth in the power demand, which is 7% CAGR, which is very much up in the industry compared with other industry as well. So yes, the infra plus industrial capex, which has actually 2.5 times up, and now in the which we can see that the power demand is actually plus 9% growth ratio. So power is the main areas where government is now targeting in a much bigger state, be it is coming with a renewable source or as a coal source, but coal is the primary focus here. And therefore, this presentation is going to sum up that what are the focus which government are actually planning here, what is the additional capacities are we seeing in the power growth sector, and one of the area where we see that government still need to have additional 80 gigawatt of projects until 2030, which has been projected. There are some pipelines are there which is 27 megawatt already in the pipeline, and we can see that almost every year on year basis we can see that there is a growth of 17 gigawatt. Taking down to the domestics, this is the main area where people are focused more that how we are actually covering our domestic goals for the power industry. I mean, mostly industrial usage power is the main factor for the domestic coal consumption. We are seeing that although there is a lot of growth potential in the power sector, but at the same time, given the productions from the domestic, it is upbringing. At the same time, we are slightly dependent still on the imported coal as well. So with this projection, we can see here that even though whatever the coals the domestics government is actually planning to of 1 billion target, we are witnessing that power demand is much excessive, and therefore the demand for imports is going to remain there. And with this projection, we still feel that around 170 to 185 million tons is the import barrier we can see, which is a potential import which remain active in the market of Indian market as of now. Moving ahead to with some of this summarize that where we are actually is bringing in the coals, highlighted one as we see that the mostly dominated as of now the Indonesian market. These are the small import data which I try to see that how the momentum has been changed because of the economical changes, war and all these things, how the other industry has moved to the different coals as well. We can see that Russian coal has also improved a lot in the market. So these are the numbers which give witness that yes, we still depends around 160 to 165 million tons on the import factor. I'm now moving to the very crucial thing that not only the coals, just to highlight that the main backbone of the industrial growth, we see the steel and cement is the main pivotal role which is happening. Therefore, the steel presentation is more witnessing to our growth factor. And this remains very sustainable things. I would say that India still need coking coals, and it is on the long run. So because of the deficit in our domestic area, we still feel that a lot of coking coal is going to be imported. So even though the government is actually planning to have a carbon abatement policies and all, but at the same time, the minimum need which is going to be there, the steel industry is going to have a more incoming of coking coal. So here is a different details about the projections of steel industry. We are seeing the potential growth in the steel industry, and therefore the coking coal demand is remain sustainable in India. These are the import factors, and as I have already told that these indices are going to witness that how much coking coal is really required for our industry, and the growth projection is really high on this. We estimate that around 90 to 95 million tons of coking coal is going to remain imported in India till 2030. The transition movement with a lot of data which has come across from big decision makers, we see that 2050s, we still remains with such kind of activities in import around 96 to 98 million tons. And post that the transition of hydrogen is going to be happen, but still there long run to be here. I'm now moving into the capacity mix, how the coal is actually really needed for, it's a base engine for any power sector as of now, even though we see that as per the NEP plan, the projection which government has actually needed, but the base engine remain the coal. We see that till 2030, 2032 is 284 million tons, 284 megawatt of power generation is coming from the coal sector only, and this is remained active as of now. And this is what the projection is. So, I mean, the thermal coal basis import, including domestic, it is witnessing that the strength is still there, and it is going to be on a long run as well. And it's all the more it is very much witnessed that with a lot of the plan and activity which government has made as of now, we see that the determinations and the contribution of coals will remain still active till 2050, around 22%. And these 22% is it's still as a 1.6 billion tons of coal is required, out of which the domestic coal is going to sustain to 1.2, including the MDO, and now there still be remains to be active of around 170 to 180 million tons of import till 2050. This is a glimpse of that, how the government activities are ongoing on this project: coals, nuclear, hydro, solar, and other. And we see the active participants from the governments on increasing the coal's capacities. There is already a full-fledged roadmap has already been given by the government, and we can witness that around 80 megawatt of new thermal power capacity is going to come by 2032, which is an additional, coal based power plant in the, because of the demand and all. What are all the opportunities we see in India as a potential growth market? Very, very fair to say that if we remain outlook till 2030, it's very easy to say and estimate that around 170 to 190 million tons is the net import required on the imported side. And power sectors is fairly increasing their pace in terms of growth momentum. And the utilizations, as I said, that the power industry, the base load is coal. So therefore, the increased utilizations, we can see the coal is going to help more in a bigger way. On the front of coking coal, as I said, that the steel industry and the steel ministry has projected a 2030 map of 300 million tons, and therefore most of it is coming from BF route, which is around 56% of the BF route capacity, and therefore 86 to 90 million ton of target being taken under the imported coking coal sector. And then the rising sectors, we see that the 14 million ton of additional capacity has been taken since March 24th, and these are actually the additional capacity which is coming from BF route. So this is to summarize, and anyone have any questions, I'm happy to take that.
Thank you for your insight, sir. We have a lot of questions coming from the audience, but I would like to ask few of them first.
Sure.
So with domestic coal production expected to exceed 1 billion tons in FY24 and nearly 10% year-on-year growth in production till July, so what is the outlook on imports in the ongoing fiscal?
I mean, the outlook of import, I mean, with all the data which I have actually projected, and it is safe to say that India still need to be having a minimal import of around 20 to 22% in their, and they have to factor this. And even though the 1 billion tons projections with domestic coal is going to achieve, but at the same time, if we see the power projections, the capacities utilization, which is increasing from the domestic fronts as well as from the industrial front, the estimate numbers is going to come with a net import value. So with this, I can say that on the long-term outlook till 2030, I can give you a projection of still, so we remain same, whatever we are currently at 170 to 180 million tons of import, and that will remain active.
Okay. And sir, what is the outlook of imports by the non-power sector till 25 and 2030? And will imports increase from current levels given by the government's import substitution policy? And will coal consumption and imports by the sector grow at a faster rate than the regulated sector?
Coal as if is going to take a pace because a lot of mining development operations which has been initiated as per the government policy, that will say we can see that is going to be activated from 2025, and then some of them has already started, but at the same time that will remain fairly active after 2025. So we can see that those potential is really welcoming in the market. At the same times, when you have asked about the other sector other than power sector, yes, it is. The reason being cement is also showing a pace of additional capacity, and we can see a growth in cement industries around 5.6%. So, I mean, all the way we can see that the other than non-power sectors, they are also going to have an import facilities in their portfolio. And yes, we can see that in addition to the thermal coals, we can see petcoke and other coals is going to be imported in a much larger scale as we grow progress.
And sir, going forward, what will be the share of sponge iron sector in total coal imports? And how is it going to increase in the near to midterm?
Sponge iron, the industry is really kind of navigating in a different direction. I mean, sponge iron has a lot of other technical feasibility studies can be taken care. But as of now, because of the high carbons requirement by them, we are seeing the domestic coal is not really going to help them. So, I mean, in that way, the DRI process has to run with the imported coals, fairly amount of the other geographies, be it South Africans, be it some of the usage has been taken place, a mixed bag of Russian coal. So yes, until we will not see that the improvement is really come up with the high carbons fuels on the domestic front, we are not seeing any kind of a change, a switch between 100% from the domestic. But having said that, we see that the DRI process is moving with the gasifications. That is a long-term projection, long-term view. But on a short-term view, I can give you for the next 10 years, we can see that that remain the stables with the import market only.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I think we have few questions in the chat box too. So if you allow, Mr. Abhi can take those questions and hear your feedbacks on it.
Thank you, Muskan. Just give me a moment, sir. Muskan, I'm facing some issue over here. Can you take over the chat box questions from your end?
Sure, sir. Just a minute.
Meantime, Bhagat sir, can you just give us some insight on like currently what we are seeing that due to the cost sensitivity of like the Indian buyers usually tend towards the low priced and high polluting sources of coal on the import side, usually from the Indonesian and the Russian markets. Now, since the China has lifted its ban, so how do you see the Indian power sector maintain its efficiency and lower emission?
I mean, China has lifted the ban. I mean, if we take 5 years back, China was actually consuming Australian coal, right?
Yes, sir.
And there has been, and after it has actually diminished or not taking coal from Australia, we didn't get much of the advantage from the Australian coal as such.
Okay, sir.
So, I mean, the fair answer to say that Australian coal has a limited impact in our import front, especially for the power unit. And therefore, this is not going to say give any kind of a remainder that, I mean, even though the Chinese actually is going to take more Australian coal, we are facing some kind of a challenges on the, in fact, the other side flip is that we can witness the more Indonesian coal is going to be softer in terms of moving towards the Indian market. So I don't think so that these decisions about the Chinese removing ban is really going to impact. It is only going to impact slightly on the coking coal front, but not on the thermal coal side.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so
Muskan,
much, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Go on, Muskan. Sorry.
Yes, sir. So, How will be the government's first mile connectivity scheme and detailed domestic coal logistics plan contribute to lessening the dependence on imports?
The government focus, the last mile connectivity is well active. We can see that the most of the revenue is well generated from the coal mining side only. I mean, the railways budget is actually is more dependent on this kind of activity, and therefore a lot of investment has been taken place. The only deviation point is here the plant which is actually located in the coastal areas. Those connectivity is really actually is on a heavier logistics cost, and those are actually on the pithead side. They are still having that advantage to utilize. So just throwing some number about how the power plant operators are currently facing challenges. I mean, one is that the quality is the one which is very inconsistent from the domestic front, and therefore if they actually wanted to evaluate, they have to see that what is the best qualities they can able to achieve. That is the big challenge number one, even though the connectivity is going to be there. Second, the cost, the logistics is actually a major impact over there. So as of now, anyone with the domestic coals with the nearby power plant is having around 1 to 1.2 calories of the cost. But if we see on the imported front, they are also equally at 2.5 to 2.6 level. So now with the logistics adding, so whether that is really substituting on the price part or not, that we need to see. Third thing, I can mention that the kind of qualities in terms of ash disposals, the government has still not taken that into the considerations, that how the last mile connectivity is going to be there, but these as the percentage which is more we can see in the domestic coals like 40 to 45% and all, how we are actually taking care of that particular thing. So the environmental issues are also there for the the coastal corridor power plant, and therefore initiative are great, but I believe the most of the initiative is actually first covered to the users, which is like cement plants and all these people, and then the least priority will be given to the coastal corridor plant.
So,
Sorry for my long answer.
no, it's okay. It's very insightful for us also and the audience. So in continuity for that, I would like to know like what would be the outlook on imports by the non-power sector, like till 25 and 2030, and will imports increase from current levels given government's import subsidies substitution policy?
See, I can witness that cement industry is still going to be active on the import, other than I mean, coal in the sense, I'm just adding up petcoke also in this particular discussions. But those are the factors which is going to be covered, because with the domestic it is really difficult and challenging to make fulfill their requirement. I mean, mostly 70% of the cement plants has actually more kind of a mixed bag scenarios, like they are really dependent slightly on the imported, and 70% 70-30 ratio. So I think those ratio is not going to change. In fact, there will be likelihood of chances that if they are ramping up their productions, we can see more imported coal coming into their portfolios instead of the domestic coal.
Okay.
One more reason to add, because the limestone quality is also diminishing. And with that diminishing, they actually required a higher grade of fuel efficiency also to cover up some kind of a burning issues. So, I mean, in the region of Andhra Pradesh and all, a lot of evacuation which is having the limestone quality is not up to the mark of the standard. So, I believe the new technologies and all are there, they are improving in those areas, and coal is the main fuels to take it burn out. So, I mean, the high calorific values is going to give more additional value to them.
So, not slightly the different note, maybe like I would like to know, like from the CES, NEP envisages that the share of non-fossil based capacity is likely to increase.
Yes.
So what we are coming to know from 57.4% at the end of 26-27, it is likely to go further by 68%. So still, will the dependence on coal peak by 35-40, or it will be lessened subsequently? What would be your suggestion on that?
See, I mean, peak as we witness, the last, October and August, the crisis which has happened, we see the peak demand of 242 megawatt in the peak demand. I think this is going to increase, and the reason being the sources where it is coming from. So, given some of the data which has recently come across, we see that the wind power has really not giving an optimal output. Okay, solar panels, the people previously has actually think of to take a utilization of 92% capacity, but it is really is unhealthy is number which has come across, and especially because of the poor monsoons, the other the powers which we are actually trying to generate, that has also witnessed 6% less in there. So the inconsistency because of the climate change, and because of the which is actually naturally is we are dependent, therefore the coal is actually one of the source which we are actually more kind of a dependent, and we try to buy quickly. So therefore the government has actually projected a slightly uptick demand, and as we grow, the demand is also coming up. The domestic and household demand is actually increasing in a big way, and they require supply very consistently, right? Nowadays, I mean, giving a few number on the core inflation side, I was reading one of the report this morning, and it has came from one of the big, decision makers of the companies on the coal and coal sector. So they were saying that India with a rising economy, India with a rising population, and India with a rising, this is the sunshine sectors, every demand is moving up, and every demand is actually moving up in a way it is not projected, it is suddenly coming in, right? And therefore to meet up that, especially on the electricity front, the domestic electricity 27%, now it is reaching to 32%, the domestic electricity consumption, and they require uninterrupted electricity in their home, right? If someone want to charge their mobile 2 or 3 times, they require uninterrupted things. So those things has been added, and they are much more dependent on the coal factor. And we are the largest, other than China, coal producer in India. So the more advantage is also coming domestically, and we are also dependent slightly for the better quality on the import front.
Great, sir. Something on on a line which is focused right now regarding the country's focus towards the green energy and the sustainability part. So, like what we know is that it is only expected that a carbon credit mechanism and carbon prices will come into effect over the next 2-3 years,
Correct.
and it will be the first to be implemented for the power sector, as they are the more energy consuming sector. So, how will this affect the viability of power producers? And what could be the likely impact on coal imports?
See, I mean, if you talk about the viability of the power sector, the number is different. Whatever the power we are actually achieving at the price X, we just need to add X plus one. And those are actually, those price factor is actually is going to cover under the core inflation. So that is one. So the major hit is actually is going to taken care by the consumer only. If they really need a, the green power. And green power, it is good, but at the same times, and greens, how much we are dependent, that we need to see first. The changes which is going to be happen, that NTPC and other big major industry are transitioning to the green energy revolutions, and apart from that, they are also thinking about the coal gasification process. And these gasification process is actually slightly lower limiting the carbon thing, but at the same time the major source is actually coming from the coal, right? So in a net demand, if you see there, the challenges are remain there, but we know we gradually try to achieve some things with the gasification, some things with the more kind of a activity on the wind powers and solar power, and we'll try to achieve. But at the same time, the price, which today we are getting at 7.76 rupees on the domestic electricity consumption, it may raise up to 8 to 8.9%. Sorry. For that reason, yes, those are the plan of actions which we can see, and we can see that we are paying a little bit slightly heavy on the electricity bill.
So, will this have an impact on the imports in the near future, sir?
Import in the near future, see, the similar kind of a pressure are also maintaining globally, right? Miners are not active, investors are not active in the mining activity, and they have also raised up their cost. So I believe The production cut we are seeing mostly is in the various geographies. We can witness, we have witnessed already in US that a lot of production cut has happened because of non-financial supports by the government. We are witnessing in the Mozambique, in some of the Colombian area, also the 6 to 7 million tons of coal has actually cut down. So gradually, so they are actually coming down with the investment. So to sustain whatever the need-based demand, they are going to maintain, and after that, they slowly, gradually is going to cut down the production.
Great, sir. And sir, I think Muskan would have asked this, but if you can throw some more light, like how will the government's first mile connectivity scheme and the detailed domestic coal logistics contribute to lessening of their demand dependence on the imports?
The last mile collectivities and Atmanirbhar Bharat, which government is actually blowstrings in every day in day out in their policy, and it is happening also. I mean, it is not that it's not happening. I mean, the first catch is there. They are actually try to make the industrial activities, which is 100% under their coverage, including the power plant. So with this, I can say that industrial activities is also growing up at the pace of on an average of 6 to 7% CAGR. But at the same time, do we ready on the domestic front to supply those? I mean, the more mining process, the more mining activities, are we actually ramping up that in that policy? Because even though we see from past 3 years, a lot of mining development operations has been allotted by the government, we are facing the challenges of land acquisitions, which is a major and critical thing. From past 3 years, only 2 or 3 of mines has well operated, and they are actually come supply in the domestic front. Those are the captive users, they are still facing challenges. So these are the areas where the policies, makers has to look out that whether or not only option is not a solution, but we have to see that what is the next course of action. So I can see that at least for the next 10 years, the horizon will remain still on the import-based basis, although it is not substantially going to increase. But at the same time, it is not diminishing at one go, like 40 million ton is off from the market at one go. That is also not happening. So it's like keeping, it's like a pendulum, slightly 30 angle there, 30 angle this side, and they are maintaining their horizon.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, Muskan,
So
go
one
on.
question from the audience side. So will the current upward trend in coal prices will sustain for the next 6 months?
Upward trending, it is for the thermal or it's for the coking coal front?
So for the coking coal trend.
Okay, so coking coal is actually slightly going to take a momentum, and this is a cyclic view I'm going to give you now. If you ask me about the 3 to 4 month price sensitivities workings, we can see that we can edge a little bit of $20 to $25 uptick. And the market will sustain around 330 to 350 level in between. This is for the 3 month window. But yes, in the long run, so we see wherever we are dependency on the geographies, those activities are also piling up with the cost. We see that the cost of mining has substantially increased globally. And therefore, earlier, when we see, just giving a rough number, that earlier the production cost of a very big company is having 80 to 81 dollar per ton of cost for taking a thermal coal from Australia. It has now substantially increased to 105 to $110. So those are actually is going to be increased on the Fairmont. On a long-term view for the coking coal, the best number I can give you is a sustainable and the workable number for India and other market is 260 to 218 bracket, 280 bracket, 260 to 280. And anything it is going beyond 280, 300 plus, it's slightly unmanageable for the steel industry. They have to again put in the cost into their, the end product, and the market is actually behave accordingly.
Thank you so much, sir, for the detailed overview on the coal market. I think that was the last question that we could accommodate in this session. And the queries that have remained unanswered due to time shortage, Do write us separately, and we will try our best to get those queries answered from our esteemed guest. A very warm thank you again to Mr. Jha for spending valuable time and sharing valuable insights on the coal industry. A big thank you to the audience too for their wholehearted participation and perceptive questions. So before we end this session, a reminder to join us on the next webinar, which is on scrap and is scheduled to take place at 4:45 p.m. IST. I am Muskan Gautam, signing out of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Pankaj,
very
sir.
much, and thank you for
It was,
joining me.
it was pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure mine. Pleasure mine. Thank you.